Welcome to the DNX Show. We're here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm one of your hosts, Todd Ryan. My co-host is Josh Reason. I'm in California. Josh is in Florida. One's the Sunshine State. That's what they call it. I don't even know what they call us out here. They don't name the pros. The Golden State. Yeah, that's right. All right, well, it's nice having you guys here. Got a big show today. Boys, they're going to be crazy. Domain investing topics out the yowzer. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the domain investing space. Basically the domain space. But as a lot of you know, I'm going to need some help here today. I'm sure Josh is going to show. But the point is, both of us like to have open discussion. I have a lot of topics on the agenda. I don't really put it on this show outline like I do the law show. This show, you can check out DNX.show or DNXshow.com for links, but I really don't even put the outline there. We got so many topics to cover. A few things I was going to start off with today. What was it? Let's see. Well, a lot of these were questions for Josh, so I'm going to be patient and see if he rolls in anytime. Checking everybody out. Hey, some of you know I'm doing a roast at NamesCon this year. What I mean by that is going to playfully make fun of a lot of the companies in the space, and also definitely a lot of the personalities in the space. And there's several that have thin skin. I probably want to run out of the room, but I look forward to seeing a lot of you there. Hopefully, Brewster, I'll see you there. Arif, I don't know if you were going to show or not, but yeah, it's going to be a good time. Anybody wants to join the discussion, raise your hand and come on up and start talking with me until Josh gets here. There's all sorts of things I was going to mention about, really, to Josh, because he's been posting a lot, and that was about, he said he bought a 5-figure name on Spaceship and that it went really smooth. And so I was going to ask him about that, about the on the buy side. A lot of people are going to the seller hub. I just put about 1,000 names there. And then I switched my servers back to Afternic. And then I realized, you know what? I think I'm just going to switch my servers back to Spaceship, which I did, and then just increase some pricing over at Afternic. Not much, about 20% to take care of that 10% difference in changing my servers. But I know Spaceship is going to offer LTOs, but I haven't seen it yet. So I hope that doesn't hurt my sell-through rate, because that thing's a beauty. I want to keep that up there, that sell-through rate. I think I've come off a lot of my moonshot pricing. I still have that for several of my names. And I say, when I say moonshot, I mean maybe it's an average name. I'll give you an example, like a rrro.com. Okay, I might have had that at 80,000, lowered it to 50, down to 30s, which I think is still considered high pricing if I really wanted to unload, say, a quad premium 4-letter. And that's, I say, quad premium, American premium, like all good letters. And if you guys forget, American premium letters, that was the standard we started way back, but it doesn't hold a lot of weight. But basically, it's letters that, all letters except for J, K, Q, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. So those are the American premium. And then called the Chinese premium letters were everything but vowels and V's. And like I said, it's just a guideline. Doesn't necessarily mean that the Asian market is only going to pay higher prices if it doesn't have a vowel or V. And I'm talking about 4-letter here. But when I do say these American premium 4-letter, it's just I've had a lot better success with those. Just more companies use these letters in their acronyms, or just more popular. So I think when I offer those names under 15,000, then they don't, not that they're selling fast. You offer them for less than 10,000, they go a little quicker. You offer less than 5,000, they go pretty quick because um, especially if they're, like I said, quad premiums, people, if they have inquiries over the years, when people see them for less than 5,000, I think that's a pretty reasonable deal. I think depending on the letters and, if they could possibly be pronounceable, you can get them. I mean, you can get wholesale at least $1,000 or $2,000 for them, and I'm talking about like random RRHR. I don't even know what that would go for wholesale. Anybody wants to talk about it with me? Raise your hand. Let me know what you think. Names like that would go for. I think Bruce was interested in a name I had one time. Was it TPRD? But names like that, great letters, but you still, it still can be considered random, and you just wait around until a company really needs, that's their acronym. They really like those letters. Or I've noticed in the past I've sold somewhere it's a company that is more of 3 letters, like their acronym might be 3 letters, and then the last letter is something they can work with because they couldn't get their 3letter.com. But it's really wide range. So when they talk about retail for a name like RRHR or wholesale, can be a pretty wide gap. Hello, Ragu. Thanks for joining me. I'm on the boat by myself. Thanks for jumping in. What's up?
Hello, good morning, and good afternoon to everyone. How are you, Todd?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Can't wait to get
Good.
rolling here. It's sort of like the beginning, first mile of a
Yeah,
run. We're taking it easy. Who's going to show up
yeah.
today? Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not expert with 4 letters, to be honest. I had so much opportunity, but it never attracted me in the beginning of my journey. But regardless of that, I believe personally these 4 letters, acronyms especially, I'm not talking about the pronounceables because pronounceable, yes, definitely has a lot of value, and if it's short and 4 letters. But acronyms is almost like exact names means if my company is a short words makes 4 letter, so I can address it that way to the my clients and all that, and build a website and say, okay, instead of going with my 4 word, here is the 4 letters for you to do this. Go to my website. Now, based on that, you have to come up with an idea your own. RRHR, is that what you have? Or RRRO,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So, I mean, um, you have to have some examples. So, create some value or the price point. You know what I mean? So, it is very difficult. I noticed. I tried myself to come up with the value of these 4 acronyms. To how to determine what is the actual value, because just yesterday I noticed one tweet. Someone sold it for like $160,000 or something like that range, 4 letters by a broker, you know and it must be some company who are going to use this short form of their name, and they have no issue paying for it. Okay, and you must have some idea where this name can be used. So, like, don't take me wrong, but I would ask you, give me an example of use of the names you own,
Well,
right? A
first of all,
solid
first of all,
example.
Ragu, if you're out buying them, you're saying before you buy them, you want to have an idea who's going to use them. Well, I was registering these 20 years ago, so my thoughts
Yeah,
back
I know.
then were, hey,
Yeah.
listen, these are rare because there's only 400,000. I think that's
Exactly. So that's the only thing could come in our mind as a domain investors, or in this business. Oh, 4 letters
no.
are rares. It's only so many
Hold on.
combinations. Let's
True,
grab
and
it,
and
whatever
like I
is
just said
possible.
about the premium, so okay, there are. I actually wanted to start a company with my brother, who's Rolls Royce Human Resources, which right there RRHR. He works for Rolls Royce, but I wanted to do if he went on his own, I was like, let's do Ryan and Ryan Human Resources. But the point is, many times it's sort of like I have SXAI. Well, because it's got AI in it, so I have it. But other companies, well, yeah, over in London, Essex AI, SX, it's like sex AI without the E. The point is, but listen, I can certainly side with you and say It's random. There's some companies out there that have use some of my four letters, my different four letter.coms as their acronym, and they'll have it on their website. It might be the whatever. It might be a long name, but then on their website it says TPRD, or whatever the
Yeah,
case.
I noticed on the trucking, the big transportation trucks.
Yep.
I noticed they always have this weird four letters as a domain. I noticed, right? So definitely somewhere in the world, people are using this as in business, and they want it as small four letters, and it will work. I'm not doubting that. I'm more worried about it, like when you put the price on it means, okay, this was $50,000. What basis? Just because it's a four letters, is it American or Canadian
Well,
or Chinese?
well, I always did it. I always
I'm
priced
not
them by.
understanding that part.
Well, I
I'm not
always
understanding
priced them
how do you put
by
the value.
how attractive, how in use are the letters. So you can imagine that sometimes patterns. There might not be one company that has LLLL. Okay, but how would you price it? And you might look and you might think, well, geez, MMMM may have a ton of
Right.
companies. Make sense.
So I do understand. So therefore, Todd, I mean, again, I'm just wasting your time. Okay, you know better than me for sure. I'm just saying that is okay. I give you example of my name. Okay, one name I can give you example of. I registered it by hand, and when I have a target in my mind who I want to sell this to, and it makes sense. And then after that, I have another five choices. If they don't buy it because Acronym, someone else will buy it. Matter of fact, I do have. I don't have anymore. I used to have three letters.coms too, and I was trying to get more, but price gone up, so I stopped buying that. I got rid of mine too, cheap. I do have three letters and two letters of my Canadian.ca domains, right? Very valuable to me, and I'm competing with .coms. For example, if I had that same .com of three letter versus .ca, you can say that okay, tenth cents of the cost. Okay, so let's say that three letter is worth $100,000, good one. I'm talking about the good one. Then my three letter .ca would at least worth $10,000. I'm taking it like this, okay? And two letters. I imagine this all the time. Two letters of .com would cost you quarter million to $1 million. Okay, easy. So imagine I own a one two letter .ca. How much that would worth, right? And I paid good money for it too, investment purposes, right? Or not only that, it is initials. It is used to me as well. So another key point is I buy this type of names, expensive names, making sure if it doesn't sell, I can use it. It will somewhere I can plug this in and make money without selling it. So I keep that in mind too. Saying all that, coming back to your four letter, definitely either you market it, you bring it to the ball eyeballs front of everyone. Okay, this is it. Like brokers do, right? Like a lot of names. Now I'm learning these techniques. If you don't show, it is your 50% problem solved if you're showing on a Twitter or Instagram, and you don't even have hope to selling these names. Let's say, but bringing to the stage, it gives some eyeballs and highlights, and it really helps, right? So, and I noticed the brokers are doing the same way these days. I can give you example of that too. And
No, now you're
again,
going. Now
and
you're
then you
going
look
on
at the
too much.
last
Hold
thing.
on, hold on. You're going on way too much. I mean, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for another hour and 45 minutes. Let me get Josh up here. But I was going to say, Ragu, the uh, the brokers. I mean, I'm with you that now you do need to make people aware. If you don't, right, we just wait around like I always did. So you're saying you need to change up, and I say that too. Times have changed. You need to really make people aware. And a lot of the big brokers right here on whatever these places are. Um, Let me see something. I mean, they're on spaces. They are making people aware. Let me hold on. I was on it. Josh, are you on stage? I can't see. Maybe not. Let me get him rolling. But Ragu, we're gonna continue this conversation. And what I mean is, you're just saying, hey, you can't just price these good letters at a high price and expect people to buy them. like you used to. And you're right. I mean, the bot shit's not working. I mean, it does. It just doesn't work as frequently as we want it to. And I think less so as before. And you're mentioning that brokers also are, they used to say, I don't sell stuff and list stuff on X. Yeah, we see them all the time sending out newsletters, but posting, hey, this is available now. Hey, Josh, what's going on? Nice to see you.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, pretty smooth. What's you weren't outside, were you?
No, I was just sitting in my office.
Yeah. And you think, what do I do on Thursdays? Hey,
For some reason, I thought we started at 3, man. I don't know. Fuck,
yeah.
I'm
Hey,
tired.
so I didn't see you yesterday at the ICA thing. I was hoping to see you there. They were talking pickleball for a minute with Steve Kennedy, but what's yeah. I mean, you're ICA member. I know that. I remember seeing you around, but okay, so you missed it. Did you just not have it on your calendar? You just didn't care? You
No,
were busy.
no. It was. What was I doing? I was doing something, man. I'm busy.
I mean, shit,
I'm trying to run like 3 companies, like play pickleball, stay in shape. You know.
yeah, I'm about ready to make some changes and get up. I mean, I know what you mean. These, not, this is to me is like it's like a call, but it's a weekly call. And I got some with my pay now, and I got a bunch of business calls on the calendar. And it's like, geez, all I do is sit here on the phone. Is unfucking believable. Hey, we'll get right to our conversation. Josh, I have a ton of topics for today. I mean, interesting stuff, but I was starting off with saying, how would I price some of my, let's talk about premium, when I call them premium 4-letter, just good letters, doesn't mean they're premium at all. And then Raghu was saying, I have some 2-letter .ca and 3-letter .ca, and I bring it up because would that be worth 10% of the .com if the .com's worth 100,000? Well, first of all, what there's 3-letter .coms that are worth 100,000 wholesale, and then some are worth 100,000 retail would be a good price for them. So they're wide range, and I think there's some 3-letter .cas, 2-letter .cas. They could be virtually worthless. Basically, you can't really say it's worth 5% of the .com. There's some extensions that are worth 0% of the .com. You can own a 2-letter in some extensions, and it's worth nothing. Okay, so with the .com, a 2-letter can be worth fucking 200,000 wholesale. So just to,
Todd, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Here, I'm sick of reading this MS dot now. The guy wants, I don't know how much money he wants, and come on, you can't say that
yeah,
2-letter
yeah, I
any
can.
extension worth 0. You can't say
Well,
that.
there's
I
plenty of
understand.
2-letter dot whatever extensions that aren't worth anything in my opinion. That's absolutely, Josh, chime in on this. I mean, I know I'm going to get backed up on this. Some 2-letter in random extension, people want to believe they're a percentage of .com. What's your thoughts?
Majority of them are worthless.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Right. Well, okay. Um, there's
Wait,
a lot of. Well, I wanted to
what did
mention
What did Ragu
something.
say?
Well,
What did Ragu say?
what did who?
What did Ragu say?
Ragu says that
No, I don't
they're.
agree. The guy, okay, you're telling me these people who are running extensions, they're putting a renewal or the registration cost $17,000. Okay, you think these people are dumb? These people are stupid. They don't want to sell their stuff.
Wait,
So first of all, hi guys. But like Raghu, when the registries are pricing their domains, it's like a blind sort of general set of rules that they price them at, right? They don't do the research on one by one. They might, some might, they should. For me, the value of like 2, 3, and especially 4-letter domains, .com or otherwise, it really depends on the letters. Now, there's some inherent sort of presumption that there's a minimum value, a minimum probability that there's companies out there that will get a random set of letters. That's why there's a liquid price, even at wholesale, when it comes to like 4Ls and especially going up to 3Ls and 2Ls. But again, it's not an exact sort of specific science on it. It's these people are buying at liquid prices because they figure, there's only a certain number of characters and there's a probability overall of having that combination. Now, a smart investor will actually do the research and go, what do these letters map to? Like what's the acronyms for? And then based on the results, which potential companies there are and what their business values are, well, then they buy the domains at a certain price point and price them at a certain price point. But you have to understand that a lot of people are just pricing them generally because they haven't done the research, and they just go on what they presume to be the averages, right? The probabilities on the overall thing. But that's the wrong way to price your domains. You want to price them individually. Like when you're talking about .cas, well, yeah, I think it's probably less than 10% of .coms. However, if it starts with a C, maybe it's a little bit more than 10% because it'll be like Canadian something, right? So it always matters. The extension matters, and what the letters map to, the acronyms that they spell out, it matters. And of course, obviously, they're pronounceable. It's a different category altogether.
You said a lot there. Hey, okay.
Again, I would say it, and I'm sorry, I'm a little bit rude all the time, and I'm going to be continue rude all like this. You guys, you tell me how many two letters you bought and sold, or three letters you bought and sold. So I don't like to hear that from people who are
okay,
dealing with
Ragu, we don't care if you like to hear it or not. I'm telling you this, and hold on for a second. That is what was I going to say? Oh, about you were questioning me. How do you price these? You need to do more. Why do you just randomly price this? Question those registries when they're offering a 2-letter in solutions or 2-letter dot whatever the frig it is for 20,000 or 5,000. Question them. Why do they think they're doing it? We know because the SLD is good, but their extension, some of the extensions just suck. I didn't want to go through some of them because I know some of the people that run the registries. I'm like, that just is a suck ass 4 letters or 5, whatever it is. So it is, and then the ones that are country codes, like you said, .ca, nothing against it. But the point is that there's no like Arif said, there's no really scientific method to say, okay, this one's worth 1%, 2%. Some of them happen to go for more, but anyway, yeah, it's only.
There is some science behind it. Like, I mean, look, 2, 3, 4 letter domains end with C. Well, we know that it could be corporation or company. So the likelihood of there being demand, with any characters that end with any number of letter domain that ends with C is going to be higher, right? So there are certain generalities we can do, but at the end of the day, the 3, like in a 4-letter .com that ends with C, the first 3 letters also matter depending on what you're pricing for, because the lowest combinations could still also be almost worthless. Like to me, like Q, Z, J, C, like to me, what's the chance of some company wanting that? It's almost nothing, right? Even at $100, I would never buy that, even if the liquid price was $100, right? But on the other side of it, if it's like, A, B, C, C, yeah, there's going to be certainly several companies out there that will want that. So, it's really, it depends on the letters.
David, did you want to chime in on this topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think it does depend also on the locale. I think you're right, Todd. A lot of the short domains, depending on the extension, really they're just not. There's not a big market for them outside of the local market. I also just wanted to add that if we're talking about names that span the dot, that can work. I've seen it work. So, it just depends. But spanning the dot, I think, works on short names with odd extensions. It can work. And then I think local markets are more likely to be interested in like a .ca like Ragu has, like a .ca. I think that's more local.
Yeah, we're gonna stay on these topics. Samit, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify good letters and bad letters. 4letter.com, I've been following it since 2007. About 100,000 were available to register when we started getting them. I think, Todd, that's when you got them. And only the bad letters were available. And ironically, the bad letters, as we look at it from a Western perspective, were the ones which were selling in 2015 under the chip craze. The letters that the Chinese like and the Koreans like and the that market, they don't want Western premiums. They don't want vowels. They don't want pronounceable domains, by the way. Of course, the top end of the market is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the chip craze. Do you remember those days? J, Q, Z, Y, Z,
Yeah,
X,
part of that was actual
$3,000
demand. Yeah, but some of that was also just financial constrictions in China. People were using domains to kind of funnel money out a little bit as well, right? So it's hard to gauge the actual demand for real chips back
No,
then.
Arif, that way,
In that
no.
sense,
So all these good letters are only money laundering. Come on. This is no argument.
no,
What
I'm not saying
sold,
they
sold.
all are. I just said,
Yeah, that's all.
specifically
No,
said,
no.
no.
In
Submit,
Korea, there were no restrictions.
wait. I just specifically said we don't know how much was in category A and category B. I specifically said some were legitimate demand, right? There is demand there in China. For
You
sure.
can also say that about the whole domain market.
Sure.
Why only Japan? Why only XYZ? Why only a specific seller?
In
A lot
China,
of it could be money laundering. Most of the money laundering will probably be in .com.
No.
Let's
But
not
in
go there
China,
at all.
submit.
Let's not go there at all.
In China, there are money restrictions for exporting money out of the country, and there were people who were using domains, buying them in bulk to sell them in bulk and sort of sell them outside the country. So that was a way to go around the restrictions of taking money out of the country. I think there's similar rules in India too,
Sure.
right?
But
But
Samit's right. You're just saying that you don't even know for sure. And first of all you do is look at all the cities and streets in fucking Asia, and you realize they start with Q and Z and all that stuff. So when you just said Q Z J
yeah,
Q Z
but how
J
many of
C,
these?
hold on. That we know those were. There was a floor on those. No one can even imagine this in the domain space that people have not been around that long. That yeah, you had any fucking four letter that had no val or v, and it was going to be, you can sell it for 2,000. I sold hundreds of them at the time, and imagine if you're selling them guaranteed 2,000. Imagine if somebody liked one of your ones that didn't have a val or v. They were paying 8,000, 12,000. I was having a great time. That was, and it wasn't, end users would have paid more. But my point is, the floor was 2,000. Well, you can't say that about hardly any categories of stuff. And you're like, well, that was because they were doing some money laundering. No, one, it was like, think of this: if all American Premium, hold on, if all American Premium had ever reached a floor of 1,000, never have. If American Premium four letters ever reached a floor of 2,000, what would you say? Oh, it's because they were laundering. We're waiting for basically the Chinese were basically trying to play the future of saying there's a limited amount of these. We know short keystrokes mean something in domain names, but it just didn't. Sometimes just one country or one region can't sustain the market. I mean, hold it up. So, I think, and finally I'll say, can that be revisited? If it's happened once, that's more likely to happen again than other bullshit names. So that's why if I saw sometimes, and I still buy them, if I see a four letter, when one guy, remember Josh Lin, the guy was in here, he's from fucking Malaysia or something. He sent out a big long list of here's a bunch of these names. I got this guy selling them. I looked at him and I said, all the four letter for $100 on this list, I want them. Then they end up reneging on it, saying, oh, now the guy doesn't want to sell them for $100 each. Because I went through them and I said, and there was a few of them I didn't even want, but all the ones that didn't have a val or v for $100, I'm still taking those. It's the shittiest letters because I'm not worried about fucking some of you guys in wherever fucking Spain. I'm talking about over there in Asia. They know, yes, that there's value. And now we're even seeing the Chinese market is when it starts getting active, believe it, they'll revisit, three letter, four letter without vowels and V's. That's what I'm saying. So I know it's happened before. It can certainly happen again.
Yeah, it's initiated with certain things I was talking about. Obviously, in the end, it was when it got to the $2,000 range. It was basically all the hype stuff, similar to like NFTs, and right? Because you can't have something drop 95% of the value and say, oh well, it's just the demand has changed. There was never really much demand there in the first place. There is it's not that 4Ls are worthless. Even Chinese premium characters, they're not worthless. It's just that you got to know which ones are more probable to be used in business names. Right, you can't do them blindly, and that's the problem back then. It was blindly. Same thing. Like at one point, there was like these six numbers that were all sold out. Right, all million of them. Right, like at a certain point, it's like, well, are these really going to be used, or is this somebody or people like speculating, right? And it's just, at a certain point, the speculation becomes
They were
too
speculating
obvious to
because
ignore.
we're guessing this is going to be a very popular area. Get it now. And then they wait a couple of years and they realize it's not so popular. And you know what? We can always buy back in. You know why? Because we don't have to outbid the Americans and Europeans. They don't pay anything anyway. Hey, I wanted to ask Josh before he goes to sleep is 8. So Tony Names was selling some 3L and 4L AIs in bulk. And I like what he was doing, meaning he's like, hey, I got some 4L, CVCV and .ai. He was willing to sell them at wholesale price like 2,000, but only in bulk, which I sold not for 2,000 each, but for in the hundreds each. But I would only do that in bulk. I'm not interested in selling any of my portfolio wholesale one at a time. Nah, I've done it. You guys have seen me do it. But the point is, it's a whole different thing when you're selling wholesale in bulk. But Josh, did you think you made a comment? You think he was selling the 4L he was selling for $2,000 a piece in bulk, and then the 3L he was selling for only $1,247 each if you bought them in bulk. What do you think about that? You said crazy on a post. You're on mute. I know you can hear me.
What do I? I'm sorry. What do I think about that? I think that I'm going to DM him about the ones that he's willing to sell for 1,500 that are at the similar caliber to TSB.ai, and the Bolo.ai and SVI.ai that he's willing to sell that you mentioned, like Folo.ai for 2K a pop. That would be very high. I mean, he's saying this because, he's basically taking the Mickey out of the fact that somebody's overpaying for Folo.ai, right? And so, I mean, FOLO is not even an amazing CVCV. It may look and sound amazing, but it's not great usage. It's not taking in that many TLDs. It's not like a super elite CVCV, and that's why he's saying that. SVI is not like a great 3-letter .ai, and it's obviously gone pretty high there, so that's why he's saying that. And then TSB.ai, if he's willing to sell similar ones to that at 1,500, I would probably be interested in that, actually, because that's a good one.
TSB, because those are premium letters used a lot.
Exactly. I mean, that's like taking in over 200 TLDs.
Well, I know you like Tony because you mentioned that 3 accounts you'd follow: Saiger, Sherpa, and Tony if you wanted to learn about domain names. I've always seen Tony post a lot of information about selling the stuff. I could never figure out how many domains he owns and how much he spent on this stuff. But I know, interesting domainer, but why did you have him in there with, we all know why everybody says, yeah, listen to Mike Saiger. He developed that whole course, and he's definitely an educator. And then Sherpa, all the material there, and Saiger started that. But I'm saying but why Tony? How did you include him in with those?
Tony is without a doubt, for me, one of the best domainers that exists in this, domaining world today. I'm not talking about like newer domainers. I'm talking about from all domainers. Mike Man, Rick, all these guys. Tony is up there with the best. The knowledge that he has and what he's been able to do in the last few years since entering the space, I can tell you that it's so remarkable that many people didn't even believe that it was true. Personally, I've spoken to him multiple times, and when he first started selling, I was also speaking to him. The first name that he ever sold at retail was a name that I sold to him. So I've followed his journey pretty closely. So I know how true it all is and how well he really does. And it's not really that hard to realize why. he almost never has a bad take when he's like talking about the market. He follows everything like a hawk. And he just understands. He just understands the game so well for someone that's so new. Way better than I did. You know, when I was 2, 3, 4 years in, or whatever he is, 5 years in, was not even close to at his level. So uh, he is he's one of the best.
I'm like, what country is he in?
India.
He's
Okay.
in India, but the thing is that he's been around since 2007 also. His Name Pros account is from 2007.
Yeah, but he wasn't investing in domains that early. He didn't really start investing in domains properly until like I think it was around 2019ish, maybe even 2020.
Yeah, that's what he says. He started his this big investments in around 2019 or maybe around COVID, in fact.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I was in a group chat with him, and I spoke with him. I used to speak with him daily when he first got into the business, and like I said, I literally sold him a batch of .co names where he got his first like retail sales. I mean, I don't think that he's lying about that. Maybe he is, but I don't think he is.
What
No,
kind?
no, he's not. He's probably not. But there are these couple of people, at least two, three people like Sweta, Tony, couple of other people from this side of this neck of the woods in India who have done exceptionally well. And they've actually grown with the sales profits. They've not invested millions to start with.
No, exactly. I mean, that's why it's so impressive is because I think that's what most people have trouble believing is that he was able to grow his portfolio and his revenue to what it is today with such a with a small investment.
It's not that.
One of the hardest things you can do.
Well,
I
Josh, I
mean,
mean, Tony and Swetha, Samet brings up. Samet, by the way, what time is it over in India right now?
It's 11 o'clock.
Oh, in the evening. Okay. Um, Geez, I thought it was 11 in the evening. That's weird. 10:30 here. I mean, it's only 13 hours difference in LA.
Yeah, 11 and a half hours difference, I think. It's 23:07 right now in India.
Oh, because I was going to say, no, I hope we can get Tony in here sometime. But Josh, with regards to Swetha and Tony, I believe them, but still doesn't mean I know their story. Where did that's like even with yours, with a lot of folks, when they first started in the space, how much money did you start investing in the thing? Because that's like, we hear about Drew. I mean, I know my own story, but we hear about Drew, guy busted his ass selling fish, saved up some money, finally started fucking with this, and spent 2 or 300,000, said it wasn't good till he finally got some footing. But okay, so it makes sense. Somebody had a few $100,000. Now there's there's a lot of new domainers in the space. Some of the guys, I'm not mad at them. I don't know, young guys busting their ass, spending over $100,000 on domain names their first year. All right, well, I didn't have that when I started way back to spend big money, really even little money. So yeah, a lot of us got in like real little, like we were registering names, and then we were getting a little crazy registering too many hundreds and then thousands, but there wasn't a big aftermarket. Of course, the smart guys were out searching for people that didn't know they had gold. But my point is really small investing. So a lot of the folks that have some, great names, even I remember when Riz was around. Still, my question as a financial advisor, I always thought, okay, so what did you really start with? Even Swetha. Okay, how much? What did you really start with? I remember posts on Name Pros, but still, sometimes they have a little bit more capital than we think. 50 grand or 100 grand or a few 100,000 to start investing. Maybe not all, maybe not the ones we're talking about. Maybe they both started from scratch, but it's like, boy, sure got up to speed fast. And I love, to me, that's just a very interesting part of the story because when I think about, and I'm not going to try to mimic anybody, I'm an old man. I'm fucking done. I'm like, you're in my jet stream anyway. The point is, for younger investors to want to mimic somebody, that's the important part that's always left out of the story. Because now all we see is Swetha said us for 120 grand. Tony, sold these things. Well, let me ask you, Josh. We were all over the place, and we'll stay with it. I see David Nix here. He said he had a sell. He's had some pretty good sales recently, or a high sell-through rate, if I recall correctly. But Josh, you bought a 5-figure domain on Spaceship, and we're going to talk about their seller hub and stuff. But tell us about just the transaction, how smooth it was, and how did you find the name, and as much as you can about it.
Yeah, I bought abstract.org, paid about 12,500 for it. I'm always on the lookout for very strong SLDs like that. I think that I am one of few buyers that will pay that much for a .org. So, while a lot of people think that that's expensive, or I'm overpaying for them, I kind of perceive that based on what I believe the future holds and my thesis on .org. I believe that I've got an advantage there. So I'm going to keep overpaying for those great SLDs. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I've had some success in that extension. So I'm just leaning in. In regards to Spaceship, it was great. Paid by credit card. The domain was transferred same day, and they didn't force me to move it to Spaceship. It was actually pushed to my GoDaddy account because that's where the domain was. It was easy as that.
And I missed what was the price? Did you say the price?
12.5.
Okay, so 12 and a half. So one, they must hey, so it's nice to be able to pay with a credit card. You get the points, they got to pay the fee. No biggie, but still, boy, they can't wait till they get, you can get your rewards and they can avoid this in the future because boy, that is but nice and smooth. No, I didn't catch the price, but abstract.org. Good. Thanks for sharing that. What were you going to say, Arif?
I was just going to ask, is the confirmation similar to escrow.com, where it's like you within the sort of the Spaceship platform, you confirm that you received it, and that's when the buyer gets the funds?
Just like
Okay.
Dan. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, but that's the thing. So there's
No, so I got
buyers waiting on.
I got pushed that domain from Spaceship. So they obviously took control of the domain.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's actually really good. That's better than escrow. That's like escrow, their concierge service, which they charge double for. That's
Right.
that's good. That's and all for 5% to the buyer.
5% for the buyer.
Oh, that's really good.
Well, I'm going to keep it rolling here. Got a lot of people in here. I see Daniel here. It's nice to see you. Really nice to see everybody. I don't want to call a few folks out, but a lot of domainers here. And we were going to talk about, I actually sent a message to Drew earlier and said, hey, I know it's too late for you over there. It's like 7 p.m. and he doesn't interact with people after a certain amount of time. But I said we were going to talk about, or I was curious. I know Andy Booth picked up the handle Sonora, and to go along with his Sonora.com. And I was going to ask Drew, so what's the deal? I mean, media options can help, get your handle. Let's see here, and can help get your social media handle. I was going to ask you how important it is, and I know I see Shane here too, and he has some pretty good handles, Botany and Runner, and how important is it to have the handle? I mean, Andy must have felt like it was pretty important. I'd love to know how Media Options helps people get their handle, and basically why they think they're in a good position to do it, and also roughly costs of good handles, in the aftermarket. What do you know about it, Josh?
Sorry, one more time.
About these handles, like Andy picked up
Oh, yeah.
Sonora through Media Options.
Yeah. They haven't publicized anything right now, so I don't know if I can say much about this. I don't want to say anything that I'm not supposed to say, but yeah, if you want to buy handles, talk to Media Options. You can do it within the terms and conditions of X.
Right, I got you. And I know there always was some, basically for a long time, whether it's Instagram or X, I got some great handles by filing claims saying I have a trademark to this and they're not using it and so on. But I know it's finicky or whatever. It's real sensitive. Shane, you got some great handles. Thanks for joining us. But did you pick yours up? How did you acquire yours? I mean, if you don't mind sharing, and what do you think of the importance of owning the Instagram and the X handle that's related to your domain name?
Yeah, I'm a lot like Josh, and I can't say everything, but I will tell you in the past, it's always been kind of a black market, or you had to bribe someone within X. So I had an X employee that was, when you transfer a handle, especially on X, the snipers will catch it as soon as you drop it. There's literally 1 millionth of a second that if you drop it, you lose it. So you wanted the ability to take and get a new handle and bring over all your followers and keep everything and move to a new handle and keep your old one. And that was not an easy process. Let's say that Media Options is making or trying to make that process easier, and it is important because social media is important. If you are a seller and online, you have online sales, you absolutely have to have your Instagram or your X handle, depending on your what type of industry you're in. So that process has been difficult. That process has been scary, has been risky, and it's expensive. So even if you're going to do it now, be prepared to pay a lot of money. That's a service that isn't it going to be an expensive service, but it is going to be a service. So really, that's all I can say. And Media Options has been helping customers get their handle, like they did Andy. But Andy pointed out that it was worth the price. So take that is there is quite a price to it, but it is doable, and I think you're going to see a great future in social media handles with a true pathway to getting them.
Interesting. I mean, and I say that because it seemed like it was so hot before, and I'm good friends with Vahid, who he owned a bunch of great handles. And I mean, before he got in the domain space about 5 years ago, he had some big five-figure and some even some large handle sales. And of course, like Shane and Josh both mentioned, there were some restrictions regards to selling in terms of service, and you had to really do it on a black market way. I thought it was not going away necessarily, but I thought for sure I've been using the word plateauing because we feel like, geez, are they as valuable as they've always been? Do people search for these? I mean, I guess when they're on a search social media, a certain platform, how often do they search for like a social media handle? Or I mean, I guess it does have authority. uh, I'm glad Daniel joined us. I wanted to say go ahead,
Let me
Shane,
just
and then
point
we'll
out
get to
real.
Dan. Yeah.
Let me just point out real quick. Social media handles sell for six figures quite often. I get offered five figures for runner. I'm not exaggerating. Every week, at least a couple times a month, and I get reset password on all my good accounts maybe 50 times a week of people trying to take them. So there are millions of dollars a month in social media handles being done already.
Yeah, and Daniel, thanks for joining us. I would ask you, so it relates to this. When you're selling these big price names, at least over at Hilco, when your firm is brokering the names, how often does a social media handle come up in negotiations from a buyer?
First off, good to see everybody. Good to hear from everyone. Um, I actually requested to speak specifically because of this topic. People care. They care nowadays, and it's not super common, but it's not rare either. And with consumer-facing companies, it can make or break an entire transaction. If you don't have the hand it, there's you can lose an entire deal. Like there's a name that we have that is particularly attractive to beauty and fashion, and it was a new company that wanted it, and they were going into the fashion space, and they said, we have a deal, all cash, your happy number. I need the Instagram handle, and it was unattainable. It's taken, like, we found the person that owns it, they weren't letting it go under any circumstances, lost the deal. um, they Consumer facing companies care, and I think that it's really good to go after handles if you have an empty vessel or a generic brand that is particularly attractive to somebody that's consumer facing, because people care about social. And even when outbounding, I can tell you that there's plenty of people that say like, oh, we're social media, like we're prioritizing social media. We don't care about the domain. Oh, we have the social handle already. We have the exact match social handle, so we don't care about the domain because we do our advertising on Instagram anyways. Um, that's an obstacle to overcome. There's a name that we sold that our client already had the Instagram and X handle. It was a seven-figure deal for another name that similarly is extremely attractive to consumer-facing fashion. And having those handles single-handedly was the reason that that deal got done. The buyer was going after a bundle. They were open on what they were going to name the company, but it was mandatory that it was the three-piece bundle between the .com, the Instagram, and the X handle. So it matters. They care.
Jeez, I mean, you sort of know that it's tough for domain investors to think, geez, we have to have. I mean, is that we have to really? Do we need that? I mean, obviously we don't, but I mean, it's overwhelming to think, geez. So hate to think that people are really looking for the full-on package because it is true. I invited Ish up here. He's a marketer on these social media platforms and always always had arguments that some companies like Daniel just mentioned think, hey, I got the X handle, invest or whatever it might be, and they don't think they know it's the in .com is just priced crazy, so we're just going to go ahead and utilize what we have with our internet with our domain name, but our Instagram handle is really unstoppable or whatever, and I mean just find it really, I guess, not surprising, but yeah, so it's still an important factor to companies. X and Instagram are the primary two. I think now no one really cares probably about any others. Are there any other social media platforms that you guys know of that, I mean, a handle's worth, has some value?
Nobody has ever cared or even asked about anything to me that wasn't Instagram or X. Nobody ever asks about anything else. It's Instagram and it's X. And even then, it's not even X all the time. It's almost always Instagram. Often both, but dominantly Instagram for me.
Well, so you're in Boston right now?
I actually moved out this morning.
Well, you get
I'm
the
on the road. We're
outskirts.
headed back to LA. I am in the middle of Pennsylvania. God knows where.
Jeez, that's awesome. I
Um, c-
mean, that's a fucking crazy, unbelievable drive, Boston to LA or that area. So, because you can work from anywhere, is that the case? You basically busted your ass there and no changes work wise, right?
exactly. Exactly. It's just time to go home. My lease was ending. I got family back home. I need to be close to family. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Um, and we're in a good place, and everybody, we work well anyway, so it's a good time to do it. So I'll be back in a week or so.
Hell yeah. No, no, I like it. I mean, now we can really, don't have to worry about you. Hey, I'm in town for 10 minutes. And then, of
Yeah,
course,
I'm telling you this now. So all of the domainers who are in LA, whoever's in Los Angeles, let's get together.
yeah. And
I'm around now.
I was going to say it's nice. I mean, I guess for Hilco, have you positioned out here. Uh, and is there any other Hilco employees that are out here?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
No, there was when I first joined 3 years ago. There was other Hilco teams that had a small LA presence, um, but nothing noteworthy. We're just doing domains all day. I have no idea what anyone else is up to, quite frankly. But it's a very small West Coast presence, as far as I understand.
Well, before we get on to the next topic, I wanted to welcome Ish. But Daniel, there's some things we were going to talk about here with regards to the need for .coms and are people always raising money and upgrading to the .com or are they not? But anyway, Ish, thanks for joining us. About these social media handles, are they as important as ever? Are they plateauing? What are your thoughts on it? I thought it was just not continuing to increase in value, but I'm having other thoughts now. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think everyone sort of like agrees that they do have value, but it's not just limited to meta properties like Instagram and Facebook. That's what we're used to. There's an emerging market with Telegram. They have a website slash marketplace called fragment.com. It used to be blocked to people in the U.S. during the Biden administration, but in a more friendly crypto climate, anyone can access that site without a VPN. But some of these handles on fragment.com, if you take a look at it, sell for a lot of money in their native currency, which is Ton. Like, for example, I'm looking at it right now, and you have names like Navy, which becomes your Telegram handle. It's an auction right now for about 17 grand with 4 days left. And some of these are sold for six figures. So you're seeing handles become prevalent, not just on Meta or Instagram, but X itself, has stated that they will figure out a way to sort of like make handles available because they do have value. I'm in negotiations for a name right now on domain agents, and one of the options they give you is can you, you if you have the handle. So I think they realize and recognize that it gives more value to the name. So I think it's an important discussion, and if you have a name and you're able to secure the handles, I think it just adds way more value to that name, and if you're able to articulate that to an end user, specifically brandables, then it becomes more appealing.
Josh, do you know of any marketplaces where you can list the domain and the handle, or some people just put like in description, I also have the handle, but is there such a marketplace that you, other than maybe Flippa, I don't know. I mean, anything out there where people list domain name plus social handles, or any of you know? Yeah, Josh just took a break. What do you think, Sean?
Daniel is nice enough. I have joq.com and I have all the social media handles. I have Instagram, I have X, I have all the TLDs. And Daniel was nice enough on Atom to put all that as one package. So it is doable.
Yeah, I don't know of any specific marketplaces that just do handles and stuff. My understanding is that there might be one coming, but yeah, again, I can't talk too much about
This
that.
guy's got more secrets than anybody I know. Hey,
Yeah, I think it's because of the TOS, like the terms of service, um, sort of like make it wrong to buy and sell handles. But I think Telegram is the first marketplace I know that are sort of like taking their handles on the blockchain and sort of like created a decentralized marketplace. But even then, it's still sort of centralized. So I think in the future we'll see that, and I suspect X will take the lead on that. It might not be combined with domain names, but handles on X have a lot of value.
yep, we got pay now. Hey, Chad, nice to have you here. What's going on today?
Not that much. Well, that's what you just mentioned, pay now, right? So we went and munched on a bunch of social handles 8 years ago. We got blacklisted on a lot of them, but in Twitter or X, started coming back, burning a lot of them. That's why when you go to a handle, it says it doesn't exist or whatever, which is bullcrap. It does. So we've been trying to, make sure there's, but the value that it adds to this, to the URL. I mean, you know, we paid $5,000 or more for handles, and we can say we've made our money back on that over and over because it does that. It's distribution. It comes down to distribution. So if you can utilize it to get distribution, then it adds a lot of value.
Yeah, yeah. Josh and Shane are launching
Yeah,
something. They're all smiling.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Hey, I always use that quote, Chad. Hold on, let me think. Let me think of it.
Content is king.
Content is king.
Distribution is
Distribution
King
is King
Kong.
Kong. I wanted to say it. Hey, we Chad and I've been hanging around each other so much that now we finish each other's. Yeah, he's supposed to come up and use sentences. Okay, okay. Anyway, hey, this next article, or not article, but it was watching these posts with Josh. Basically, I was watching mostly Snoopy. He's from Australia. I know it's the middle of the night there. I sure hope he can join us sometime. But there's this raising Phi that the Darcy, I believe, put together. That it's a raising.fi. He follows these
Yeah.
companies that raise money, right, Josh? And basically talk a little bit about, so we're seeing companies not on the .com raising some good money. The one that I had written down that raised 25 million was, this was on a .com with protege.com, but that was like a name with a prefix that's crazy. But on the ones that other extensions, Snoopy was saying, yeah, you don't need a .com. You certainly, a lot of companies aren't going to quote upgrade. They don't care. They'll raise money on other extensions. But I want to ask you, Daniel, especially because he's like believing that when you're a broker, do the companies eventually come around more likely than not? But Josh, first, what are your thoughts on what Snoopy said? You don't need the .com. Summit said you do. I believe he said, I can't remember. Summit was bad. Anyway, Summit, you can chime in after Josh. But Josh, is it necessary to have a .com, obviously, to raise money and then be successful after that?
No, obviously not.
Okay.
It's like the most it's the most definitive answer ever. It's like not even a debate whether it is or whether it isn't. You don't need a .com. It's proven over and over and over again. And anyone that says otherwise, you need to screw your head back on. So that's how I feel about that. The Raising.fi is a very, very good tool. If you haven't used it, you should. I can go onto Raising.fi, right? And I have an account with them. And if I want to, figure out how many companies have a domain that that is like get something, like, I don't know, getmurphy.ai or like getsupply.ai or getapril.com, I can just type in get, and it shows, all these companies that got funding rounds in their domain that starts with get. And there are a lot of them actually, so that's obviously a pretty popular choice. Or if I wanted to, I could type in health.com, and I could have a look at all the companies that have raised money with a domain that has health.com in it. So I'm just looking here, and I see all these companies: c8health.com, orbitalhealth.com, puntohealth.com, swordhealth.com. So it's a great tool, and if you're not using it, you should.
Summit was, who was it in the, I know it's David Michaels saying you need the .com, you're going to get in trouble if you don't build on the .com, but there are a lot of folks who believe, and I would say, I know Daniel jumped, I don't know, he's driving, so he's probably not, but Daniel at Hilco and then Drew at Media Options, they all say they're going to come to the .com eventually, and some of us think, no, they're not even looking for it. Summit, what's your comments here?
So last week at the same show, I was trying to speak and I think my network dropped out. So I made a post that do you have to have the .com? The .com adds credibility. Is it advantageous? Absolutely. But is it the only path to success?
That
Probably not.
there
are
is it is it require is the .com required to raise? No. It's not going to kill your raising efforts. That being said, a lot of VCs are pro exactmatch.com, and they are for and support the idea of going to get it. And in a lot of cases, they'll help the founder pull it off. Like if they agree that it strategically matters, and let's just say that they didn't raise enough money, or they didn't they can't allocate enough to get the .com, like based off what they've raised so far, like they'll work it out with their VCs. Like that happens all the time. um they're all for it, for supporting the growth of the company that they're investing in. um and at some point, just for the reasons of business, it does become a significant thing to have. But it's not necessary to successfully raise the money, if that
Sure,
makes
sure.
sense.
Okay, right. And let's go back to Summit before we go to Arif. Summit, clarify, what were you posting? Because I remember it, but I want to hear it
no,
so
no.
I
It
can.
was just basically that the question I think last week also was, is the .com mandatory? And I said, in my opinion, it's not mandatory. It helps. It's advantageous. It makes it easier. Life may easier. The bigger companies which are globally significant or looking for a global footprint or US based should go for the .com because that's the de facto on a global level. And in the US, it's almost mandatory because you guys don't use .us. All over the world, people use their CCTLDs. And in America, the .com is what you recognize at. But now you look at it, 45% of the companies raising capital in the last year or last 8 months are .ai. I think this stat was put out by somebody, I don't forget whom. But you again, like you said, raising five, if you go through them, a lot of the people raising funds are not using .com and using get, the, my, now with, and some of these go, these kind of prefixes have been common. When you can't get the single word .com, that's what you go with. What Snoopy was trying to say is you don't even need a domain name. I had said that you need a domain name to be the center of your marketing. And he said, no, the domain is not mandatory. David was saying, yeah, you need the .com. But I don't agree with the .com, but you need a domain to be the center of your marketing. Maybe I'm old school, but I personally see the web as a spider's web. You know, the center is your domain or your website, and social media and anything else you do are peripheral marketing activities which drive traffic to your domain and thus sales. That's the funnel I look at.
As much as I don't
Yeah.
like to, I tend to
Plus we
agree with
all,
you. Go ahead, Eric.
like I said, plus all those of us old enough to know and had stuff on Facebook 16, 17 years ago, all know what happens when you don't control your audience, right? They start to pay, start to charge you so you can contact your own followers, right? So unless you have your own way of controlling your audience, that's a really important factor. But just getting back to the general conversation, I mean, I don't know anybody in 2025 who says you absolutely have to have .com. I mean, it's everything in this industry are shades of grays. There's no absolutes, right? There's certain conditions where, yeah, you certainly still do need a .com in some situations, and other situations, again, like if your audience is all very digital savvy, then yeah, you don't need to have the .com anymore. Yeah, does it help? Yes. Is a .com still worth more? Absolutely. I think the only real pure exception there might be in some minor exceptions is .org, right? But even then, even charities, I think they'd also want the .com at least to go hand in hand with the org, right? And so, yeah, I don't know why we're having discussion over and over again, because it's like it depends.
That's what I was just about to say. I don't know why we would even be having this conversation. It's like it's just
Okay.
Yeah.
it's like
Okay. Well, we're gonna
absurd.
go on to the next one then. But I'm glad I got you and Shane
No,
here.
but
Hold
it's
on.
not about you. It's not about you,
I know.
Todd. It's about the fact that this conversation just keeps coming
We
up,
know,
and
and,
it's
and we
like,
know the answer.
why?
No, and I knew the answer when I asked you, Josh. But it's like, well, of course it doesn't matter. I never thought I knew people build big companies not even on the friggin' internet, and way before .com. Us old guys know
Yeah,
we didn't even need this stuff. And there's guys with big companies, and we go, hey, they don't even have a domain name. You find them all
yeah,
the time
exactly.
when
Man.
you're searching Google, and you're like, I want to go to your website, and they're like, they don't even have one, and they're like,
I
yeah,
could
I'm
raise
in.
money without an internet connection, dude.
Right. Okay. So,
I
but
mean,
I'm glad I got you and Shane here because you guys, you two, I remember saying about all these commissions because you were saying, you did make some comments, Josh, about, you don't choose purely based on cost, but both you and Shane had said, and can I say you guys' names over and again, you and Shane, you guys were saying, yeah, GoDaddy, oh, who cares? Fuck it, 30%, it's worth it, this, and this. A lot of people are pushing back on that because now the seller hub's 5%. But explain why it can be worth it, or it is okay for a company like GoDaddy to charge up to 30% commission. First, you, Josh.
why is it okay for them to charge 30%
Yeah,
commission?
why would you support that?
The same reason why it's okay that Atom and Brand Bucket charge 30% commission.
Okay, don't be so quick with your answers. Hey, but still, I know you'll expound. But Shane, you know what I'm getting at. A lot of people are just, I can't believe it. Why would you even support that? And you're not really supporting it. You're just saying they've built their network. I know the argument for it because I can go on both sides as well. But Shane, what's your argument for, why it's, okay, let's say, for GoDaddy to charge 30% commissions?
Because if you're a business, you do your homework and you see your revenue and your profits, and you charge as much as you can until the market proves you can't. And they're proving that they can, and certain domainers they're seeing sales and they're seeing it worth it versus others. Now we have to prove that others can lower the rate and get the same results. I'll just say it real quick. I hate teams, like politics, everything. Everybody seems to want to have to choose something and get really emotional in it. And to me, it's just business. It's about how I make the most profit dollars. I'm not here to save the world or say this person is nice or not. It really comes down to where do I make the most money? And until you prove that Afternick's rate is too high because I don't make the most money, then I'm going to stick with that.
So
I
I guess
also push back on Afternick charging 30% commission. They don't charge 30% commission. I've never paid. I've had 100 sales on Afternick this year. I haven't paid 30% commission on one of them. I paid 15% on nearly all of them. Some that were on Atom, I've paid 25%. But I mean, the whole mentality around this is the fact that everyone is talking about Afternick charging 30% commission tells you everything that you need to know. Because if you wanted to actually have a normal, like, fair discussion on the matter, you wouldn't the conversation wouldn't be, why does Afternick charge 30% commission? Because they don't. So it's just an agenda, right? It's an immediate agenda when you start saying that Afternick charges 30% commission.
You hit it right there, because you're right. It's like how I framed it, and I was always a GoDaddy customer anyway, and I felt like, Josh, like you, I use the landers, and I didn't have boost on, so I was paying 15%. So when someone says 30%, I'm like, so you're just boosting, not with the landers. I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but you're right. It already starts off wrong, and we see that, and I appreciate what Shane said too about taking sides. Leaders don't take sides. We don't fucking, pin me down here as a Democrat or as a Republican. I have conservative views all along this area. And then I'm real progressive, like a head of a fucking rocket ship over here. So don't try to pin me down with anybody. So I do like the idea of, what's best for business, and their network that they've built is what, worth what they believe it's worth. And, I am leaning Arif. I'm going to let Arif say something here, because Arif, I have been leaning towards, I do believe it does penalize you when you're not using their servers. And now, with Seller Hub, we see you use their servers, it's 5%. You don't use their servers, it's 5%. No funny stuff. I know, it's more of like a bonus that GoDaddy does if you use their servers.
Well,
That's what they're saying. But go ahead.
But it's the opposite, right? Yeah. So, I mean, look, first of all, in theory, it could be up to, you said up to 30. It's actually up to 34.6% if you have Boost on, if you don't have the landers, and if it's a lease to own that's over 37 months or 37 months and above, right? So 34.6% up to. Obviously, it's not in all cases. I've had one so far this year where it was 30% because the domain was expired. So the landing pages obviously weren't at GoDaddy. And, I'm still happy to make that sale because it was a domain I was going to drop, right? So still getting 70% of something I was going to drop, I'm still happy for. But, again, I'm not against the whatever percentage they charge, right? I mean, obviously lower is better. I do think once you get to 20 and above, unless, like the difference with Atom is that they're actually paying for ads, right? And so that's the difference maker for me. And
Wait. That the difference with Atom is that they're paying for. You think GoDaddy's not doing any marketing?
But they're not for our stuff. They're doing it for their AI stuff and like their Arrow and all this other stuff. It doesn't directly benefit us, especially if they're actually charging us extra to go into the search.
You don't think that GoDaddy's brand marketing directly benefits us?
I think it does. I don't think it does to make it 30%.
Arif knows
of course
wrong
it
there.
does.
Well, maybe not for the 30%, but right, Josh. It makes people feel comfortable. Like that's the most popular company in that space. So I can see when you're checking out and it says it's a GoDaddy company, Afternick, they're thinking that's what I wanted to see. So that value is right there.
Yeah.
In your face.
When they took Dan from 9% to 15%, I was like, that's fine. That's like, to me, I get it. Like, to me, that it's justified. Plus, there was also added distribution. I get it. Like that, I have nothing against that free 15%. That 15% standard, that's fine. If you have a lot of extra services, if you have brokers that are probably a little bit better than the ones on average at Afternick, then yeah, 20%, I could even say justifying it. And if a company wants to charge more than that, I'm not even against that, right? Free market is free market. However, when they buy out Dan and Uniregistry before that, that's when I think there's like things that are going on. Plus, GoDaddy in certain elements of the business have more than 50% market share in many things, like expiration stream, right? They have the registry. So these things can be used as leverage to, like, say, okay, well, the other companies, yeah, we're going to do 30%, or they're using it to get more maybe advantage over Cedo. Now there's pushback, right, with Spaceship, which is good. But that's my issue, is that there's because of lack of transparency and very aggressive, potentially, I'm not saying it is, but anti-competitive sort of buyouts and using that as clout, one part of the business to benefit other parts of the business. I just think there's questions that need to be asked on the anti-competitive nature. Again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I wish there was more transparency because, again, the clout that they have, they could be potentially using it in an unfair way. But again, I just want the transparency. That's why I stood up at the ICA meeting the last 2 years. It's not because I'm accusing anybody of anything. I just think that we as an industry should be looking into these things a little bit more, and there should be some transparency. Because when they're charging 10% less to have your landing pages with them, that means that they're disincentivizing. They're making a block for the next potential Dan to come up, because we won't go there because it'll cost us 10%.
But they did have an
right? So
answer
all these
for it.
things add up.
Before we go to Summit, they did have an answer for it, okay? And their answer was, we reward you. So you don't like it. You think it's penalizing the other people, but they're saying it's rewarding you. And I will say, most brokers charge 10 to 15%. Daniel's there. Like Josh said, we pay 15% to brokers for the good names. To sell your shit, yeah, it's going to be 15%. And you were saying 32, just like Josh said. People keep throwing around 30. What do you got Boost on for if you're not using their landers and you don't like them? That's not to you, Arif, but to everyone. Why would you have Boost on? You don't like GoDaddy, but you're going to pay them the extra 5% when you don't trust them, don't like them. A lot of people don't, but they trust them with the Boost. So it just doesn't make sense. If you are paying 30% at GoDaddy, you're already foolish, okay? I mean, really, because you should have the fucking Boost off. And hold on,
but it's also perception, because look, they said, oh, well, Boost on, you're gonna get up to 10% more sales. Well, they go, well, we're only charging you 5% more from 15 to 20%, but that's not true, right? Going from 15 to 20% is an increase of 33% in commission.
Sure,
right?
We know.
Yeah, absolutely 5%, but like this,
I got
it's
the
all
Boost
perception.
off, and it's hurting me like fucking. Like, I'm not going to say a disease, but yeah, I don't know. I might have to turn it back on.
On the other side, I am selling domains through Afternic this year, and I'm having a good year. So, like, it is what it is. I just wish there was more transparency. And there's some things I think we do need to look into as an industry, because we're just too small for governments to really care about real regulation that's needed, when in fact we might need it. Again, it's questions I'm asking that should be asked. What the solution is? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything is fair, right? But it's just that. We don't know what's going on.
Imagine the answers to your questions. They have answers, and you're not going to be satisfied. We're going to go to Summit, and then I want to ask Chad what makes him mad about this business. Anyway, first, Summit, what's going on?
So I'm more on Shane's side. It's just business. If you don't like them, don't use their landers, don't use their sales platform. And 30% or 50% of nothing is nothing. If they're not selling anything for you, you're not paying them any commission. You have your own landers. Don't list, Arif, one sec. Don't list them on their landers. Don't list them on their marketplace. You won't get any sales through them. They won't charge you anything. You want to sell domains through them, you pay them what they ask you. And like you said, 15% is the norm. Even if you have Boost on and you're using the landers, is 20%. It's not such a big deal here. There are other businesses, and this is such an illiquid business that any sale is a good sale. So if someone's willing to charge me 20% and sell my domains, hey, sign me up.
So if they buy Spaceship tomorrow and they increase their commissions to 40%, are you okay with that? It's just business?
It's just business. That's how business works. It's called consolidation, mergers and acquisition. Like,
yeah, but
they're not running a non-profit.
You can't do too much.
They can do whatever they want to, provide. It's called capitalism. You have an option of taking your names off their platform.
If it's like somebody buying all the parking lots
RF is a Canadian socialist.
Outside the NFL game.
Where's the line?
Hold on, they're buying all the parking lots. Now you got to walk farther, find a parking lot way back. Or you know what? Don't get out of the game. Don't go to the game anymore. Domain investing isn't for you then. It's like they operate it. I mean, it's sort of like, we're running this game. This is our game. You play by our rules. And you're thinking, well, I don't want to. Well, then your option is have your own landers. And
here's the thing, is that there are rules in society and in business, right? Like, I mean, look, the browser wars, right?
There are not.
right?
this is how big business operates. They swallow up the smaller competitors
Yeah,
and they raise
sure.
the prices
But
to pay for that company.
why can't we push back when it becomes
Because it's
commissions
meaningless. It's
okay.
meaningless and it's petty, for lack of better words. But you
How
have
is it
options.
meaningless to make more money, to keep more
No,
money in our pockets?
you have options, right?
That's the whole point, is that they buy up every option that comes up.
That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to they're supposed to look out for their
But there are
shareholders
supposed to be
first.
checks and balances in place to prevent
But
mega.
they have only bought out
They
two.
don't.
Come on, they
They
bought out
don't buy
fucking
out every
Uniregistry years
option that
ago.
that comes to the market, man. That's just not true. Did they buy FD? No. Did they buy Pseudos? No. Did they buy Domain.io? No. Did they buy any other self-hosted lander? No. Did they buy Cedo? No. Did they buy Atom? No. Did they buy Brand Bucket? No. So they have not bought every other option. They bought Dan, which was one option, and it was a good option.
Yeah.
Now now that but I mean, let's be
And
clear.
Uniregistry.
Do you know what Dan? Do you know what Dan provided? They provided a lander that looked good, and they provided a lease to own option before anyone else did it. That's it.
And they had no distribution, right, Josh? They didn't distribute anywhere. It's just a lander. So
No, I think he was planning on it, but he never really got anything off the ground.
yeah. So what's the difference between, you always can do your own lander. You can do thousands of landers for very little per month. And Dan, what made Dan better? They were just a lander. It's not like they had any more reach. People came to Dan. So you could do that yourself.
Yeah. For me, it's more about the distribution network, right? That's me, where I love to see Spaceship and Dot work together and like have an alternative. And just, again, if there's an alternative after Nick, there might be downward pressure on commissions. We'll see what happens now. Like with Spaceship, he's 5%. I just hope it's going to stay low. Like we can't expect it to be 5%.
It's most likely not going to stay low. It's called an introductory offer. It's called churn. It's smart marketing.
Yeah.
And when you talk about GoDaddy has a bunch of services that they offer that we consider premium. You love speaking to your rep, don't you? They're paying our salary, man. You know, they.
Bro, you know how much money I'm spending on the auctions that pay for my.
You're not doing anyone a favor. You're doing it because you're a capitalist as well. So it has to be a win-win.
I get it. It's just that there's certain things in business where we should look at where the line is. What do we accept? How much do we
There's no line in capitalism. You push till it's pushed back.
But that's just not true, right? There are regulations in free market economies. Like it's an important part of it, right?
If the argument's getting old, Uniregistry bought mostly because they liked a lot of what Frank had there, except then Dan, I agree with Snoopy. Dan was fucking nothing. Shane just said it, lander pay, but people loved it. We don't know why. And then that's two. Who cares? Tiny things that they purchased over decades. Why don't you throw Afternic in there too when they bought Afternic? But there's all the companies that we see. Josh just mentioned a ton of them, but all the other ones, they're not buying any. There's plenty of competition. The reason I say people don't want to get into this space is because, there's just not a lot of business. Anyway, the argument's getting tired of 30% commission. That's fucking stupid. And even though, they're higher than, and then them buying out all the other companies. They're not even buying out, and I doubt if you're going to see them buying out too many more. They're trying to get their own shit straight. A finance talk show, don't know who you are. I'm sure I've talked to you before. I bet it's somebody that we know with a funny name, but what's going on? Nice to have you.
I don't know what the objection is with Afternic. Look at Atom. To delist a name, it takes 30 days. It took me 6 months to get a domain valued correctly again, a revaluation or whatever. Afternic, you can do it in an instant. You can remove a name, sell it on direct. You don't owe Afternic anything. Atom, even if you sell a name outside the platform, you have to still give them their commission. And if it's not Afternic, God help you, because you still owe them 30% or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he's right about no one's complaining about Atom, like Arif said, that they market and brand bucket. But anyway, that's pretty high too. Finance talk show. You joined the stage. You requested to speak. What's going on? Come off mute. What the fuck are you doing? Hey, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, Todd, I just wanted to add that, as I sit here listening to all of this, it really comes down to a person's individual choice. I mean, for me, it was a little bit about validation. I've worked with Afternic for years exclusively, probably a decade, and my results have been okay. I think my sell-through rate's been all right, but I wanted validation from another source. in terms of the activity. And what I found interesting in the month that I've been working with Spaceship a little bit is that the data that I'm getting is, I find it helpful. I mean, I definitely do. It's, as I think Elliot said, I find it actionable. I mean, I'm actually going in there, making adjustments based on, intuition off the traffic numbers. So, I don't really have any problem with capitalism. I don't have any problem with GoDaddy doing what they do. But the reality for me was that I thought personally the Afternic site was a disgrace, a mess. Different sections with different information. They're writing me and following up on leads. I don't even own a domain anymore. I mean, it was a mess for me. And it was worth me looking outside of that world for validation in terms of what's going on. And I will tell you, I've had sales at Spaceship almost immediately, and I'm continuing to see the transparency that I like. And I don't have any problem with 30% commission, but I will say this: if you're going to charge me 15, 20, whatever it might be, do you have to nickel and dime me for some stats? Do you have to nickel and dime me for a discount domain club when when I can buy domains everywhere and they're much cheaper? I mean, it's those little things that to me, if I'm dealing with a partner, I think it's enough in the package. Just package it up and give me everything. Okay. And that's all I had to say. The nickel and diming and the mess on the back end, it just was enough for me to want validation and to seek it outside of Afternic. That's all.
Yeah, I had to get, Dave, I couldn't agree more. I had to get a $640 charge credited to me because they renewed, what they renew? This domain discount club with the pro package with a bunch of, are you kidding me? Of course, it was a mistake because I'm not paying for it. But of course, I've lowered my name of my amount of domains that they'll come right to me and say, now you don't get a rep anymore. Anyway, so yeah, I've had Drew and Schwartz, Rick, and all the big time. We've all had the same guy, Mark Becker. Fucking great. He paid for his 4 kids to fucking grow up. I really like Mark. Of course he's great. But even he knows, Todd, you don't buy anything in the aftermarket through us anymore. You hardly ever did. You had 7,000 names, 6,000. Now you got fucking 1,000. Like, what do you do? And then I tell him each month, drop these. And then I'm transferring those. And he's like, geez, so he likes me well enough to about tell me no longer I'm going to be working with you because you don't do the business. So yeah, the nickel and diming, way too much. Okay, I mean, it's ridiculous. But anyway, I know my options are, we'll still be friends. Mark, I'll see you at NamesCon. Yeah, he'll be probably in my crosshairs. This guy's such a good guy. I really like me. I'm saying nothing bad about him because this guy's been fucking wonderful to me. But GoDaddy as a company, I don't think really, domain investors, they've dealt with us, and I think they've done a pretty good job. But I think, behind the scenes, it's like, listen, some of you just aren't, GoDaddy isn't the company for you. You guys, just complain too much. We don't care. We don't, we're going to deal. We really like the small business owners. And Paul even said at one time, those small business owners that drop their domains, that's where the gold is, because they have like the few good ones. They don't care about us domainers dropping our names. We have mostly a bunch of crap. I wanted to say, I don't know, Chad.
I have a really good rep too. Like I have good things to say about GoDaddy. I'm a domainer because of GoDaddy, right? Like I buy all my, look, in the last 4 months, I think I've bought close to 1,000 domains in the aftermarket, right? I'm very happy with that inventory. There's a lot of good stuff there. It's also, as you said, sometimes there's issues. And that's another one of my frustrations. There's just a lot of bugs there, especially Afternic, like when they had the self-brokering. Like there are bugs in there. There are things with block communication. I have self-brokering on, and last week I got something. I went to a broker. Right? There's little things like that. I don't expect perfection, but there is a lot going wrong under the hood at GoDaddy as well, right? But there's a lot going right. Like I'm a profitable domainer because of GoDaddy. I can't deny that at all. It's just that I just wish it was better, and I wish the numbers were a little bit more what I think is a little bit more transparent. I can't say fair because I don't know what's going on behind the hood in some of these contracts they have with other companies, right? So who knows?
We're going to be here another 30 minutes. We're going to talk about purchasing a portfolio. Josh, I want to talk with you about that. But before we do that, I want to see if Chad and Daniel are around for some exciting stuff. Chad, we've been talking about, registrars. You've been in the business 25 years. Anything you'd like to see from registrars or marketplaces that you think could, benefit, basically improve our industry?
30 years, Todd. You know, I've used a lot of registrars, and be honest with you guys, I'm over at NameBright. I've been over at NameBright for 10 years, mainly because if I need a product or feature, they'll build it for me. So I've been kind of loyal to Jeff and Andrew over there. And I'm wholesale, so nobody can beat their pricing. So for me, yeah, there's still a lot of complexity in this just DNS, uh, MX records and DNS records and, a lot of infrastructure technical stuff that I think can be a better job of getting integrated into these other systems. Like we're working on the, wallet integration on the URLs, and there's issues with, A records or TXT records that drop your hosting. So I still think there's some technical stuff that need to be done on there from a commercial enterprise standpoint. But that's just my take. Again, I'm not too big into pick one good one that you like, work with the guys, in my opinion.
Okay, before we leave you, I want to talk to Daniel for a second, and then David. Thanks for joining us. But Chad, you got more than 20,000 names. What do you just prefer having your own landers? What do you think about the marketplaces out there? You have any favorites?
Look, we test them all. Adam's been obviously the new kid on the block that's been, iterating really fast. Listening to their customers. They've been down, but that's kind of the growing issues. We prefer our own landers because we want to control the narrative and the data, right? I mean, a lot of people don't talk about the amount of data going through the domain name space that's valuable, that's not leveraged. So, and then relationships, we want to control our relationships. So, but then again, we also get our monthly AWS hosting bill, and it costs a decent amount of money to maintain that stuff. So it's a give and take. For us, we've always wanted to control our own destiny and do our own thing and build stuff. So, but we test them all, we use them all, but we prefer probably just to go back to our own. Because look, at the end of the day, if the person does your lander really sell the domain, maybe you can say some margins, but our sales are never really based on the landing page the person goes to. It's the positioning of the asset with the end user. And most of the time, the end user that's going to be buying that asset, that domain, is, hey, are they using it? Is it for sale? And that sense is how you position your asset is really, I think, an important underlooked story.
Interesting. No, thanks, and I'll talk to you later. I got something to say to you probably. Hey, but you bring a good point up, Chad. I want to ask Daniel before we go to David. So Daniel, when someone is lucky enough to have Hilco rep in their name, how do you tell them? I mean, they use what type of landers and what? Well, I guess first, I guess just that. Did you use a Hilco lander? What do you want the domain to present when you're repping the domain name? He's driving through. He's in Amish town now. That was a goofy ass question I had anyway. So, hey, David, thanks for joining us. What's going on? What comment did you have? Nice having you here.
Hi guys, how you guys doing? Yeah, about the landers, man. People keep complaining about landers and commissions, and I'll just share what I do. I have about 2,000 domains. I use my own landers. I don't use anybody else's landers. I do 5 to 6 figures a month, and 90+% of all my sales are basically people going to directly the www dot the domain, see if it's available. So everybody, it's funny when people think, oh, Adam brought me the sale, or even after Nick. No, because I think a huge percentage of the sales that these marketplaces make is because people went to the actual domain to see if it's available, if the competition has it, or what's going on with it. And That's how I make all my sales. I barely sell on Afternic. I barely sell on Sea-Doo. 90+% for my own landers. People just reach out by Telegram or WhatsApp saying, hi, how much is the domain? And we close the deal, and I pay either 3% or 5% when I import the sales. 3% to Sea-Doo when I import the escrow service, or when I import the link to Afternic, 5% max. So I barely pay more than 5% on all my sales. And nobody really talks about, again, if you're a part-time domainer, that's fine. Use Landers or whatever, Afternic, whoever. But if you're a full-time domainer and you want to take this seriously, like I take my business seriously, I have a big clientele list. For example, I sold a gaming-related domain to someone a month ago, and he reached out. I said, it's $5,000 for the domain. He said, can you do it for 2,500? I said, cool, no problem, but you come back to me the next time you develop a domain. And he just bought another one from me. He's a full-time developer. He builds websites for gamers. So I have repeated clients, 5 to 6 figures a year, just from repeated clients. Has nothing to do with landers, has nothing to do with domains. Just come to me, say, hey, I bought a domain from you. You provided great service. Transfer was fast. Payment was safe, secured, and they keep coming back to me. So people are missing out on the benefits of using your own lander to get all these repeated clients. And when you use whoever's marketplace landers, whoever bought the domain on Afternic, for example, next time they need a domain, where are they going to go? To Afternic, because that's where they purchased their last domain. So people are missing out on a lot of business by pushing their customers to other places.
David, I heard you say that before, and you're right. You just added on what Chad said, controlling the narrative, controlling your brand, controlling the everything. But okay, so David, how many? I like when you come in here. It's like a pool hall. Yeah, and I just fucking won a tournament over there, and I do it this way. Hey, how many names do you have total?
I have about 2,000 names.
Geez, so that's great.
And I started this method when I had only 300.
But I like the repeat customer. It does mean something. So if you do you have an example of one of your landers? Do you have your WhatsApp on there and your phone numbers and stuff? Do you have an example you can?
If you go to my website, ultrapremiumdomains.com, or you visit any one of the domains, it's all the same lander. It's just here's the domain. It's for sale. Contact me, email, WhatsApp, or Telegram.
UltraPremiumDomains.com. No, that's too long. Just kidding. Okay, so we'll check that out. David, I remember, you having a conversation, I believe, with Ish and some other gentlemen, and I love that. Basically, it's almost, I would say, not the new way, but you certainly want to have the opportunity. Like you said, please, next time you're building something, especially for those builders, come back, speak to me. And I like, you mentioned a price of $2,500. So I can tell that you have some reasonably priced stuff. I'm going to check it out. UltraPremiumDomains.com. You can see what type of landers David uses, and he just answered the question. Put that in your pipe. Smoke it. You don't need,
That's for every business, not just domains. You're selling hats, okay, and you're only using eBay or whatever platform. Whoever buys the hat there will keep going back to that platform. Build your own brand, so they'll come back to you and they'll buy hats from you, and you save that commission, or you save that the whatever fees the platform's charging you. So build your own clientele.
Yeah, it is true.
I
That's their customer.
Todd, I have a question from just you say you use Afternic for the for the checkout link, right? The 5%. But are your domains also listed on Afternic and their syndication, or you don't? That's off completely.
They're all listed on Afternic and Sea-Doo, and I increased the price by 15-20%. So if the buyer comes to me and says, hey, I started a domain on GoDaddy for whatever, $10,000, I'll sell to them for 15% less if they come to me.
So what would you say is approximately your percentage of your landers sales versus the
90+% of all my sales are from my landers, and I sell the transactions completed by my website, by me directly.
Okay, that's good. No, that's good. Good for you. That's what we should all sort of aim for. It's just again, going back to, I don't want to go back to GoDaddy, but in theory, you're not supposed to price your domains less on your own landers, which I find is absurd. But unless they change that rule, that's another issue that's there. In theory, you're not supposed to do.
I think I could care less if tomorrow I delist all my domains from everywhere.
Yeah, that's the important thing. Yeah,
Maybe I don't think you ever
that
heard me
gives you
that much.
strength. Yeah, that's great. That gives you strength. That gives you like clout. It means you don't rely. It's like, again, going back to the Facebook days when people had their businesses and then all of a sudden Facebook charged them
Shut you
more and
down
more and
one
more.
day, yeah.
Right?
You
You
wake
have
up, or
control of your own destiny. That's great.
Yeah,
yeah,
UNAID's
same thing.
terms of
So
service on that, David, I'm with you. If they're going to go ahead and police that, then fucking come on and do it. Kick me out of whatever club. But okay, I wanted to get to Daniel, but that interesting, David, like you said about the all the traffic that Adam gets, or all the sales and all the sales that really any of the platforms get, now Seller Hub. It's because we got our servers there, and the traffic, a lot of their traffic that starts milling around the store, it's because somebody went to that one name, and now hopefully they are interested in that name if it's yours only, and they don't end up clicking any of the other links and start milling around the marketplace. But
like you're feeding your competitors all the time. When you're using someone else's marketplace and their lander, and let's say you listed, I don't know, bluehats.com, and they'll land on your bluehats.com page, like, you know what? I wonder if redhats.com is available. They'll simply go on the Adam's homepage and buy the domain for someone else. They can't do that with me. When they come to my website, it is what it is, what you find. And I see people spending 40, 50 minutes on my website, going through page by page, and then they contact me, asking me multiple quotes on multiple domains. So when you're sending out your traffic, if everyone tomorrow morning, I think, changes their name servers to their own landers, how many sales do you think these marketplaces will bring? Across the board. After Nick, Adam, how many sales do you think they'll get? So it's your domain that you're bringing them the money. It's your asset. You're bringing them the goods, and you're paying them obviously for the commission. You have the merchant fees. 3 to 5% merchant fees. Nobody talks about disputes. These guys handle probably millions of dollars in disputes a year. Combined. So yeah, it's worth paying 15, 20%, whatever. I don't care about that. But you bring me a sale, I'll take it. The rest, I'm building my own.
That's the other thing at GoDaddy. I enjoy the GoDaddy, right? I get my money fairly quickly, usually within one business day. For me, it goes to my PayPal account. So again, there's just good stuff there. I don't want to be all pessimistic. Question about your landers. Is this something you've kind of built from scratch, or is it a product you're using, or?
I'm not a tech person or anything like that. It's a simple WordPress website. I build a page for each domain, and I threw it to redirect the page. Like if you go, for example, to ubitcoin.com, the letter U, bitcoin.com, you'll see a simple, clean landing page for sale, Telegram, WhatsApp, email, and that's that. Simple WordPress. I pay $200 a year, $200 a year to manage this whole operation.
You don't even have a price listed for that one.
Yeah, most of them are inquiry. But David, also
zero prices on my website.
Your whole purchase. I mean, I know you bought a bunch of stuff on the aftermarket. So true. We want to know. I want to ask Daniel a question, but still, my big question for you, if sometime we'll have a chance to really go into, is you've spent building your portfolio. It's not even I say super large, couple thousand names comparable, but still, it's those aftermarket buys. I see what type of names you have, and I know unless you were registering them with me 20 years ago, you bought these on the aftermarket. Some of them, these 3 character, sure, you can get some great prices, and you know the difference between number, letter, number, letter, number, the bullshit. But my point is, I know you're out there purchasing on the aftermarket. That's the interesting part of it, the expense and where you're picking them up. We'll get back to it sometime. I want to talk to Daniel while he's driving a little bit, help him through Pennsylvania, because I really wanted to ask. Daniel's a broker for Hilco, and I wanted to ask him what trends, what is he seeing? I ask him this every time. It's like, and he's like, Todd, nothing's changed. But what are you seeing out there with regards to where are people willing to spend, mostly what trends, what sectors, 5 figures, 6 figures, not necessarily the $1 million names, but those ones where people are, you're just seeing some, hot. Is it an extension? Is it a sector? What are you seeing, Daniel?
We're just not involved in other extensions. When people reach out to us, it's because we have, the exactmatch.com, and most of the time it's in the, mid 6 figures or above. So we're just not seeing those conversations. Like we just don't know. Um, I I again, I don't think anything significant has changed, recently in the high end sector. Those that get it, they want it bad enough. We've gotten some buy side requests where somebody who um, personally believes that the domain name is game changing, like the people who have extreme conviction in their need for a killer domain name, what we are seeing is budgets that are much higher than the standard range of what such a name is going for. Um, I don't know how much. We have somebody who is looking at a domain name that category of name would typically be in the mid six figures to maybe low seven figures on the high end. And they absolutely want this domain name. They think it's going to be huge for them, and they have a $5 million budget. Um, it's not, best case scenario, it's not going to take that much to get it done, but that's how bad they want the name. Um, so what I think is interesting is those that are well positioned in terms of having cash in hand, or on hand rather, that really really want and believe that they need the domain, are willing to spend more than what a name we imagine would be priced for, if that makes sense, without giving away too much. Um, so that's something recent that I've seen a handful of examples of, which I think is interesting. I don't think that's such a data point can act as guidance to then price all of the names within that subcategory of based on that instance. But it's interesting to see. I think that to me is what's the most interesting currently.
Well, Daniel, quickly on that. So when you're talking to some executives, and I know uh, Andrew talks to quite a bit, when they're already somebody who's already on board, like, yeah, we know domains are worth a couple, worth seven figures. How do they arrive at that? Meaning, is usually do you hear stories like because they worked at another company and the domain meant everything and really turned out to make the company successful? Or, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, sometimes I assume like a CEO finally realizes, damn, my competitor is on an exact match, or I've somehow somebody convinced them, because sometimes they have to be educated on it, but then they're educated on it and then they actually, you know, I say buy into it, but think they are worth millions. Basically, if they're already at that point and you don't have to educate them, how are you finding that they're getting there? Is it just from their past experience or dealing with competitors, or you know, you know what I'm asking?
I think it's all of the things. It's all of the things or sources of information that you think it is. They're all happening. Whether it's past experiences, coming from a company that had their, their killer.com or whatever, or their competitors are doing it. Um, we never know where it comes from. It could just be it could have been a conversation, somebody they're friends with picked up a cool domain and it's doing a lot for them, or their buddy is investing in a company that's branded on a cool domain name, or they've just noticed on their own that they tend to trust a company with a phenomenal domain name and they're skeptical about somebody whose domain name sucks. It's there's so many places where that comes from. I mean, it could just be observation of like, oh, all of the industry leaders have their exactmatch.com or something. Um, it's all of the above. They're coming from it's from all angles. There's so many. That's what's interesting about domain names is there's so many situations where they matter, that there's so many situations where the relevant people are learning from. Because people that are in those positions, they're smart. These are really smart people. These are people that are paying attention to the world. They're paying attention to business, free market, politics, all the things. But the point is, they're mindful of details and little things. And domain names are everywhere. So I think there's just a million ways to pick up on, to come to that conclusion or to make that observation. Really,
Well, thanks, and thanks for being here too, and drive safe across country. I can't wait to see you. Hey, Josh had something come up, and he's not going to be here. We're only going to be going for another 5 minutes, but I wanted to mention, hope Shane's still listening, and that is Shane's always brought up, hey, I want to be the company that can afford the fucking 5, 6, 7 figure name. And usually they're just companies that busted ass and now they find value in it, but they position themselves to be able to afford it. And usually it's not like they position themselves to where they fucking can afford it. And if it doesn't work out for them, they go bankrupt. They've already proven themselves. Shane, I know it's like weird, expand on it. You're like, Todd, you just said it, but it shows that companies can build, be successful, be strong, and then go out and look for the name and really just to improve and become stronger, right?
Yeah, I mean, I only say that just because it's a different level, right? Somebody pays $10 million for a domain as a domain seller, that's a lot of money. But if you own the company that can afford to pay $10 million, you're probably you probably got a little bit more money in your bank account. So yeah, I'm a businessman first. I love domaining, but the real money is in owning a business and having the equity in that. I've always approached it that way.
Once again, thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to shut down here. I got a call every Thursday at noon, but still, there's one topic I didn't get to bring up with Josh that we're going to start with next week, and then I'll give anybody, if anybody has a comment they want to make before we shut down about what's been talked about today. Is Josh said somebody brought him a portfolio, and I'm guessing, I think I knew who it might be, but brought him a portfolio of about 60,000 names, 65,000 names, and the person was wanting over $100 a name. Let's just say on average $100 a name. And you think, well, if there's a lot of good stuff in there, maybe it's worth it. 60,000 names at $100 a name is right. 65,000, 6 million. So you see, a lot of folks have these large portfolios, and if you want to, and if you're, you want to sell a large portfolio, and you reach out to someone like we know, somebody reached out to Josh, and Josh is very interested in buying domain names, especially people that are undervaluing names or buying in bulk. But sometimes there's just too much crap in there. I mean, basically, I wanted to talk with Josh about it. So yeah, it wasn't quite worth 6 million to him. Otherwise, I'm sure he would have, figured out a way to get what he needed out of it. But I guess that's where we're going to start next week. But it's funny how the numbers add up. And I mean, you start getting 2,000 names, like David said he has. Arif's got about 4,000 now. Like I said, Chad, 20,
Five now.
5,000. Chad's 20 plus. You get up there, you have, 30,000 names, 60,000 names. And even if you try to unload them for, you think a low figure. You think, hey, I'm $100 each. I've built this portfolio. It's still very difficult to find somebody who wants to buy all of your stuff. People will want to go through, and that's what I was going to ask Josh, go through, and like he wants to do with Tony names. I'll take some of your 3-letter .ais, but I don't want them all for that wholesale price. So it's a, give and take. And I was going to, ask him about buying portfolios, different, basically, how he evaluates it and so on. All right. Well, anybody on stage want to make any comments on what we talked about today? Anything? We're welcome to.
I'm not going to say anything more about GoDaddy today, but I'm going to say that it's interesting for next week is that, with both Josh and Mike, they did sell some stuff at wholesale for $100 each. But again, it was like unit pricing, right? Small quantities, but we'll get into it next week, I guess.
Great. I appreciate everybody being here. Once again, you can check out the DNL show. That's the Domain Name Law Show on Tuesdays. We do this every Thursday. We'll see you next Thursday. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for the room, Todd.